Welcome back to Squawking Dead after a lengthy hiatus. I think it's safe to say that we're fresh enough to be able to handle the death of Carl Grimes. You know, there's no better way to honor the impact Carl has made on The Walking Dead more than allowing his impending demise to go on for 2 episodes, sandwiched between an agonizingly long break while also making us relive the actual bite and all the events leading up to the final stroke. Episode 9, Honor, rewinds us through some moments that have been going on throughout Episode 8 and propels us through the additional 30 minutes left in the episode to move the story along, teaching us a few things along the way. I have to admit, after rewatching this episode several times, it put me in a pretty morose place. When that happens, I take the coward's way out and give it up to my hostess with the mostest, the belle of every ball, the maraschino cherry on my Sunday, Carol.
Wow, that was as good of an intro as they gave Carl a send-off. Sheesh.
Yeah, after 3 takes.
I'll still take it.
3 times.
But yeah, what a send-off for Carl. There were some pretty emotional moments there. I mean, I didn't know it was going to be a full 90 minutes, but it was. I'm not surprised. And I do feel that they might have dragged it out a little bit too long. I kept kind of thinking, okay, all right. He is passing away in this episode, right? This is happening, right? Right. Gonna drag this out any longer. I think it wouldn't have felt that way if they would have taken the time to kind of had some one-on-one time between, because I thought they were going to give the opportunity Carl to say his goodbyes to his like little family, like goodbye to Rick, goodbye to Michonne, but goodbye to Daryl, goodbye to, I don't know, just individually
to each one, personally, or
just something. Like I would have thought, like if you're going to drag it out for 90 minutes, I would have thought there would have been a little bit more, because it seemed like, I don't know, I guess I would have expected that, like, especially with Daryl, because I'm like, you guys have been together since the beginning, since you guys were in the camp in Atlanta, so I would have expected something there. And I mean, yeah, Daryl's Daryl, but like,
Daryl's a man of few words, yeah.
A man of few words, but I think that part of it too was to give the opportunity for, Chekhov's notes. I mean, basically like those notes, those letters that Carl wrote, I have a pretty good feeling are probably going to loom over everybody for the rest of the season. That's my guess, that those letters are going to like be Carl's voice of reason throughout the rest of the season.
Do you think they're going to do like a voiceover thing while they read the notes?
I think so. I think that he wrote notes specifically to each person. And I suspect, in my heart of hearts, that one of those notes is for Negan. And that is how he's going to find out that he passed away.
That's a good observation, because like, we've seen a ton of the who these notes were addressed to, like Enid and Dad and etc.
There's a stack of them that he handed to Michonne. So, because in my mind, I thought to myself, well, it's going to affect Negan, but how would Negan know? It's not like anybody's going to call him,
Yeah. You're going to have to deliver this somehow. Ain't no post officer.
No, carrier pigeons, man. No, but it's like, I thought to myself, I was like, maybe via note somehow. I don't know. Maybe that's how it is. Maybe that'll be part of bringing these guys together somehow. I don't know. I just have a feeling that his presence is going to still loom large for the rest of the season. That's my thought.
That would be a nice, interesting departure from the way people usually go out too.
Yes, just as that they're gone.
They disappear.
They're just gone. Right. Well, it's funny because I was thinking about it and I was like, well, what other characters have gotten like big send-offs, on the show? Because in reality, Glenn didn't get that big send-off. He was, murdered, so it was like he didn't get that big send-off. I thought about Tyrese.
Tyrese, I did too. He got a whole episode dedicated to him,
sure. Just a whole episode just dedicated to kind of wishing him well, I guess Sasha to an extent, She had that whole episode leading up to her death. So, with some characters, they have done it like that where, okay, this is your episode and this was Carl's episode. And I think there were some really good moments, like dialogue-wise, that I really liked. It had moments where it was getting to be a little bit too wordy, a little bit too, let's rein it in a little bit. But I think that there was some solid dialogue, which, was good. I liked the dialogue between him and Judith. I thought that was really good.
Oh, yeah. So like a little monologue, really. I mean, there really wasn't between them.
No, it was like his monologue. But the thing was that I thought the way that it was promoted in the trailer, they made it seem like that monologue was geared towards Rick, like the whole kind of like, I didn't beat this world, you will, whatever.
I mean, it kind of was really, if you think about it.
But it was like, for some reason, it made me think of like, did you ever see the movie Children of Men? For some reason, women can no longer bear children. And then, I don't know, the world is just sort of like falling apart, I guess, pre-apocalyptic or on the cusp. And there's this one woman that's discovered who's pregnant, and the purpose is to protect this baby because this baby is the future. And so it's like, it gave me that same sort of kind of vibe when it comes to Judith. It's like, okay, Judith is the John Connor of this world.
Yeah, she's like the future. But no, I remember what the movie that you're talking about. Yeah, but yeah, I get what you're saying. You know, it's kind of like you're the harbinger. You're like it's kind of like you will fix all the mistakes that we've been making lately. Hopefully,
exactly. That's the idea.
I didn't beat this world. You know, maybe you will.
Exactly. So I thought it was. I thought it was a good episode for sure.
Yeah, there is a lot that deals with innocence, redemption. There's not a lot to really talk about in terms of really specific stuff because I can tell from the way the episode was constructed. So you have like literally maybe half to 2/3 where we're kind of backtracking and we're going over basically what was going on in episode 8, like I said in the intro.
Right.
What was going on behind the scenes from the moment Carl was bit with Sadiq, honoring his mom, etc., you know, that sort of thing. Just killing walkers to kill walkers, you know, to set them free. So you have that moment. And then you have the things that were going on at Alexandria during the time, you know, Michonne leaving, Michonne coming back, and just what Carl is trying to do the entire time, writing his goodbye notes, hanging out with Judith, and generally fantasizing about what we find out. Oh, well, I mean, we can just leap right into this, but we don't find this out until the end of the episode, but we do know what the extreme flash forwards are about, and they're really Carl's vision of the future, which I thought was really cool. And I almost don't even know if that's what they intended that was going to be about, or if they kind of just circumnavigated the fan theories or something.
I think that it was kind of a clever way to do it because it doesn't necessarily take it off the table entirely.
Right.
Like, it's Carl's vision. We're not saying it couldn't potentially happen. I think that what we'll end up seeing is a version of his vision, not necessarily exactly his vision. I don't think that. I still firmly believe that we will get in the second to last episode of this season. I'm thinking we're going to wrap up this all-out war, and I think that we will do some sort of time jump, and I think that we will see a version of Carl's future, not exactly what he envisioned, but something close to it.
Similar
at least.
to,
something close to it. Like, not exactly. I don't think Negan's going to be picking strawberries with them in the garden.
Tomatoes, we find out.
Was it tomatoes?
I mean, when he was talking with Rick right after the gas station ordeal,
yes,
he mentioned, "Oh, we're just gonna pick strawberries with me."
Yeah, exactly.
But in his flash forward,
it was tomatoes.
It was tomatoes. Yeah, I was, and you know what? All the people doing the Talking Dead quiz, like it was like 64% said strawberries, and it turned, and like it was like 28%, maybe, you know, there was like it was tomatoes, and like everybody got that wrong basically.
Yeah, because how
are you to know?
No, because it's like I automatically just assumed because of what like Rick had said. It's like, oh, he's picking strawberries. Okay.
Exactly. Well, turns out we're wrong.
It's like, well, you're wrong. Those were tomato plants.
Tomatoes are way more practical. Carl is smarter than us.
Like, that's great.
Rick is stupid about farming.
Farmer Rick. But
butternut skillet pie. By the way, that made my mouth water too. I was like thinking about it, like, dang, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, it sounds like a great future.
Yeah, Southern food.
Southern food looked pretty great. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was very clever though.
Let me ask you a question though. Did you see that coming though? Like in any sort of way, like that it was like just fantasies?
That it was Carl's vision
specifically, I guess.
I was thinking that it might be somebody's fantasy just because once we established that Carl was done for, I was like, well, it can't be an exact vision of the future. That is off the table because Carl was in that
future.
Fantasy. Carl was in that future. We know he's not going to be there, so it can't be the future. So it has to be some sort of hallucination or some sort of vision, you know, because at one point I thought, oh, well, maybe this is Rick's vision of what could have been, and all of the people in that fantasy don't survive. I don't know, so it's like I didn't necessarily think that it would be Carl's final vision of what he wanted to see, like his dying wish. That I hadn't necessarily thought about. And at first I was angry. Like when I was watching it, I was like, you're kidding me. It was a dream.
Oh yeah, you even texted me or like messaged me.
I think I texted you. I was like, it was a goddamn dream.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, I was not pleased. But then in thinking about it, I was like, well, it doesn't mean that isn't necessarily, potentially part of the future. This is his vision, and maybe his vision will be actualized, maybe not, maybe some sort of version. So it's not really taking it off the table completely. And I don't think that it's off the table completely because it's, as a comic book reader, it's way too similar to like what the future looks like for them to just kind of be like, psych, yeah, the future's completely different. It's like you copied details verbatim, like let me pull out the volume and open it up for you. Like this is exactly what it looks like. So do not troll us like that. That's not cool. Maybe it won't be exactly like it, and some of the details might be a little different in terms of who necessarily survives all the way to that point and who does not, and to what extent they come to some sort of peace treaty agreement with Negan. I don't think he's going to be farming with them. I think that's a little bit too optimistic of Carl. But in terms of the other sides of like living together and growing, and Eugene was in that future because it's like you can forgive Eugene and like bring him back. That is feasible. Negan, not so much. That's a little bit too ambitious.
That's a bridge too far.
That's a bridge too far. Yeah. Exactly. That ain't necessarily going to happen. But could a version of that happen? Maybe, So I think that they were smart. They didn't totally take it off the table.
I mean, obviously, I can't deny that this was a Carl fantasy, but
right.
even though at one point during the episode, you see kind of Rick wake up while he's holding Judith, and this is right after like one of those flash forwards.
Yeah.
And I sincerely thought this was at some point. I was like, is Rick imagining this? Is this Rick's fantasy? Because you mentioned it just now. I'm like, I remember the exact moment. They were still in the tunnel. He was holding Judith, and he kind of just snaps out of it for a second.
Yeah.
This is just right after a cutscene, and so I thought, I was like, what? Oh, that's interesting. Rick is envisioning this future.
Yeah, I think that they kind of like alluded to different things, so you were sort of like never quite sure. It's like, this is Rick's version, this is like Carl's version. It wasn't until the very end that it's like, oh, I guess this is Carl's vision,
Right.
And then especially, with when Negan appears in the fantasy, then it's like, oh, well, yeah, this is Carl's.
Like, yeah, Rick wouldn't think of that. But yeah,
no.
I think I still maintain that this is kind of a farewell to this idea. Like, even though Rick at the end of the episode, as Carl is winding down in the show, essentially, I still can't imagine that future, that specific future, even though Rick promises that he will make it happen. I just still can't imagine that. Like, maybe half true, like it'll get as close as it humanly possibly can.
They're gonna have to rebuild.
But yeah, as rosy as it is, even the part with Eugene, like, I keep thinking to myself, I don't know if even though it may be 4 years later, I don't imagine it being that rosy and that bright and that, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. It's just sort of, it's just, it makes me uncomfortable because I don't trust them. I just don't trust the showrunners to give us that kind of future and to give us that kind of comic specific drawn out ending or whatever.
I think that they might give, not necessarily like, oh, life is great, because we are still living in an apocalypse world, so like, yes, we can rebuild, but it's not going to be the way life once was, so it can't be all that rosy. But I do think that after potentially 2 seasons of dragged out, like, just in the gutters, like dismal war, and like there's no other place to go from up, so it's like they're gonna have to kind of like sort of like, okay, we are rebuilding, life is better, the war is over, not necessarily perfect but better, and kind of get not to a utopian society obviously, but something better, something where they can kind of come to a place where they can live with it. Yes, we're in a zombie apocalypse, but they find a way to sort of live with the circumstances that they are and kind of survive in a more comfortable state rather than the day-to-day. A sort of rebuilding of civilization in their own small way before, the shit hits the fan again.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is what's been said, is that purpose of Carl's death is to further the overall story, and that they didn't feel that keeping Carl alive would have necessarily sealed and closed up and tied up the story of the war as cleanly without his death. I don't know if Carl's death was necessary. I don't know.
Ooh, you really don't feel that, huh? I mean, I'm actually on the opposite side of that argument. I'm kind of like, I don't think this war can possibly come to a close without Carl dying, in my opinion. But you got to tell me why you think that, because it just seems clear to me.
I understand, I understand how you can do it, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I guess the thing is, and I think the actor Jeffrey Dean Morgan mentioned this too, I think on Instagram, he posted some long goodbye to Chandler Riggs. And one of the things that he was saying was that, in the comic, there's a lot more exploration of that relationship between Negan and Carl. And I would have really wanted to see that, because I think it's pretty cool in the comic. And I feel like we got little glimpses here and there. We kind of started scratching the surface to it. And it's a shame that we don't get to see that further. But I understand where they're coming from in terms of furthering the story. My big concern was just sort of when the war is over, where do we go from here now that Carl's gone? And I say that just because I know that for the next major arc that happens in the storyline, it's heavily, heavily contingent on a teenage Carl and his romantic relationship with a particular individual is the catalyst for everything that happens.
Ooh.
So
interesting.
That was what everybody was anticipating, but with now Carl gone, I still think that they should do that story arc, because I think it's a good story arc. But in terms of who would take up on that story, some people said, oh, well, maybe Enid could take it over, but I don't think honestly it works giving it to a female. I think it has to be, because of the circumstances of the story, I think it has to be a male character. So when I thought about it, I actually thought, well, Carl's death actually paves the way for Daryl, to be honest with you.
So that re-resourcing Daryl for that part of the story.
Carl, for roles parts that Carl would have been the protagonist, it would fall to Daryl. And I think that actually makes a whole lot of sense, because Daryl honestly has been given criminally not enough. He hasn't really had much of an arc since season 3 with Merle and the governor. Since then, Daryl basically grunts and snorts and shoots things with his arrow, and he does a lot of really cool action sequences. But in terms of it's true. How much dialogue has he gotten since then? Very little.
Yeah.
Very, very little. He has not had much of an opportunity to really kind of flex his acting chops, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that they would probably be a very, very good opportunity to give it to Daryl, especially because when I thought about it, I'm it's kind of a shame, because it's Daryl is almost the poster boy for this show, along with Rick, obviously. But it's Rick and Daryl. And everybody on the show has had some sort of exploration into further into the character. And they've had relationships that further explore, what they're about. Rick's been in relationships with Michonne, freaking Carl and Enid, Abraham, Sasha, Rosita. I mean, Jesus Christ, Dr. Denise, Tara. I'm Daryl is asexual. He doesn't have nothing other than this little kind of whatever that they always tease with him and Carol. But that's
obviously
not romantic.
Not happening.
No, and that's not a romantic relationship. That's a very strong family sort of relationship. That's
like a sister, or
or a kind of some kind of family. It's a family kind of relationship. You know.
Familial.
So it's they really haven't given him much, and we don't know much about him at all. The only semblances that we got to his depth was, again, back when his brother Merle was still alive. We were getting more insight to their dynamic and where they came from and that sort of thing. That was it. Once Merle died,
so you do have hints of the kind of personality he has. I mean, nothing but walls. Yes. And you do see those walls come down, and then you finally kind of see the moment where he starts going out with Aaron and he starts recruiting people, and you really start to see his character develop a little bit. Yeah. But on the flip side, what you do see is the writers seem to really just kind of put him in situations where he screws up, honestly, and he's the cause of some pretty nasty stuff happening to people. Just from the start, I think he's due for like a win at the very least. And I guess the best that they could do is, like you say, probably sew his character into what Carl would have actually done. Now, this has to do with some sort of love interest thing where he's with a love interest and then that kind of helps out with the situation.
It's a catalyst, like his relationship. I mean, I don't want to be give too much away.
Right.
But in the comic, Carl has a relationship with a young lady.
A certain young lady
from another community that's not so nice. Carl's relationship with this young lady and his care for her is also part of his protectiveness over her, because the next story arc deals a lot with a group that essentially believes that the apocalypse is just basically letting the earth go back to its natural state, and that we are all animals just like these walkers are. And they don't believe in any sort of rules, and because that's rules are enforced by the civilized world, and we're not in that anymore. So this particular young lady is the subject of a great deal of abuse at the hands of her own people, because
she's of those people.
She is of that tribe because her mother is part of that tribe, and so she is basically the subject of a lot of abuse, and her relationship with Carl kind of gets her out of that abusive situation, and he kind of sort of saves her. But it's almost like a little Romeo and Juliet sort of situation where like the two tribes, I guess, kind of have conflict, but these two tribes would have never necessarily interacted had it not been for the relationship between these two. And without giving too much away. But
right, of course.
But I think it's an interesting story arc. I think the characters in that story arc are very interesting. And I think that I always anticipated that, this was coming. But now that with Carl gone, I don't think, like I was saying, that somebody like Enid could take Carl's place, because that would mean that like she would, most likely be with like, the opposite sex of like a son, and the abuse part just wouldn't necessarily like make sense. Like it wouldn't necessarily work, because one of the heavy topics is rape. And so it wouldn't necessarily work if it's Enid and like a young man. It has to be the other way around. So to me, it kind of makes sense, because I could see somebody like Daryl being with a young woman who's maybe going through this situation and basically kind of like being very protective over her. So when I thought about it, I was like, well, this may pave the way for Daryl to take on a bigger role than just sort of kind of being the right-hand muscle man behind Rick. He doesn't really contribute much else in terms of like storyline and plot, unless it's something action related. It's like, yay, here comes Daryl on his motorcycle. He's like shooting with one hand and driving with the other. That's awesome. But like
he's like an action figure.
He's an action figure. That's exactly what he is. And it's like, I know he's cool with it. I'm sure he's cool with it. But at the same time, it's like he could probably, stand to have like a little bit more, of a fleshy role. Give him something to work with.
Right, a fleshed out role rather than a fleshy role.
Fleshed out. Fleshy, fleshed out. You get it.
Yeah, one or the other. Now, to take us a couple episodes back, when Rick and he were at the armory, you remember that Rick kind of snapped out of it when he killed Baby Daddy and took Gracie, right? But he finally noticed that Daryl was kind of going into automatic kill mode, basically robot Daryl. And, all the things that he'd been working so hard to kind of embrace, Daryl, about finding good people and bringing him in and make himself feel good, and having his motorcycle and all that stuff. All that was being unwritten. Killing, what's his name?
Morales.
Having this role coming up could be the thing that saps him out of it. I mean, between that and peace, he may not be cool with peace post-war, whatever it is, and he still may not be healed, so this could be one of those things that kind of brings him around, just kind of snaps him out of it, depending on like how this whole peace thing gets smoothed over and all that stuff.
No, for sure, I think so.
This would be a good piece. It would be a good thing for him to kind of move forward a bit, be a person.
Well, that's what I mean.
Be an actual
him
character.
More of a character, like give him depth, because I know a lot of people would be like, they're gonna clutch their pearls when I say this, but I kind of like Negan. I don't like the saviors, to be clear. I don't like saviors.
Mm-hmm.
However,
you like Negan as a character.
I do, because I think that he is not a good guy, but I don't think he's a bad guy either. And I like that. I think that there is complexity in his role. And I think that we'll see more of that complexity in Sunday's episode because
Okay.
I think so. Because I think that Rick and Negan kind of struggle with similar demons, and I think that they both have their own ways of quote unquote governing that are very different. Some believe in totalitarian regimes and others, believe in democracies, that sort of thing. But, I think that the right-hand men, in terms of Daryl and Simon, are the ones that need to kind of be reined in a little bit. I think that Daryl is just, like you said, he's just in this kind of zone and needs to be sort of reined in. And I think Simon is a sociopath who will probably get killed off before the war's over, either by Negan himself or I would say the Oceanside.
Oh, that's interesting.
Community.
Because I think we're both on the same page of him being the arbiter of their fate. Originally.
I think it was Simon. And I think that Simon's going to kill all the junkyard people on Sunday.
Oh, whoa.
I do.
Wow. Why do you think that? Because of how they tried to run up the sanctuary?
Well, because they showed in the clip on Talking Dead, they showed the clip for next week. And I think they released like another trailer for Sunday. And Negan is talking to Simon. And, they're trying to decide what to do about the garbage people. Because I guess based on what we saw in this episode, the saviors that were inside, I guess, saw who was outside. So I'm guessing that when Rick and the junkyard people showed up and they opened fire, it's because they saw them. So I guess word got back to Negan, I guess. That's my guess. Because in the trailer that they show, it's Simon and Negan in the Negan's, I guess, office. Talking about, what are they going to do with the garbage people? And Simon's very much like, yep, we got to show up, and just, it uses up a lot of ammo, but, we're better off that way. Basically, like, let's go in and kill them all. And Negan gives him a very stern talking to about, again, how people are a resource. How people are a resource. Mm-hmm. And that's not how we do things. He's like, you will go in, you will take one out and the rest will fall in line. And he gives them this very stern look and he tells them just one, Simon. Which makes me think, again, that Simon's going to take matters into his own hands. He's not going to listen. He's going to kill all the junkyard people. And that would coincide with the trailer that they showed for this half of the season, where they showed Jadis kind of like all crestfallen and sad, sitting like stripped of her like garments and stuff.
Oh, and not for fun this time.
For fun this time. Yeah, exactly.
Oof.
So I think that Simon goes in with a show of force, doesn't listen to Negan, disregards his order, and basically, decides to just kill the junkyard people and, keep Jadis alive to suffer, I guess.
Wow. And which is the exact opposite of what they're kind of scripted are supposed to do.
Because that is Negan's way. Negan does not believe in mass killing. If you think about it, throughout everything that we've seen of Negan, he has always made a point of like, you kill one person to make an example, whether when it was with Sasha and she was like captured, same thing. Actually, like that situation with Sasha, he could have killed her right then and there, and he did not, because he felt like she could be productive and useful to them. So he did not do that. He basically said that, he would have to punish somebody from Alexandria for, trying to rebel. He had no intention of hurting her. I mean, hell, when one of his guys tried to rape her, he killed him. Right.
Rapey Davey.
Exactly. And
can't forget
so
that one.
Negan has a very strict ethos that is not necessarily something that everybody understands. And there are some things that are off limits. Arbitrarily just killing people for the sake of killing people, no, because people are a resource. Women and children.
Yeah. And there's a strategy too, by the way.
Women and children, off limits. They were protecting baby Gracie. He had like a whole nursery for this child. Like even when, they came and confronted Carl in the gate, and Carl was like, oh, there's women and children in here. He's like, there are women and children in the sanctuary too. We had a little baby girl. What happened to her? So it's like, I don't think that Simon thinks that way. I think Simon's just a sociopath that just gets drunk off power and really does not care. So I understand Negan, and I think he's a complex character, which is why I say he's an interesting character. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Sunday, because I think we're going to see more of that kind of complexity, and I think we're going to see more that a lot of the problems are coming more from his troops, I should say. His ranks. It's coming more from his ranks rather than from him. Right.
And do you think that this is going to be more of a finally him confronting the inevitability that his system might not be the best one? Like, he may have his rules, but the way he set up his hierarchy, and maybe even the fact that everybody's meant to kind of follow these rules, or maybe they were never meant to work to begin with. Like, I mean, it's all well and good, but it just the center doesn't hold.
Right.
Like, if everybody is depending on you to enforce the rules, or everybody's looking to you for the answers, first of all, to follow these rules, like, don't you think at some point that there's just somebody that's just not going to be able to do it quite as well as you? This brings us right back to Carl. Look, instead of dealing with these sociopaths, psychopaths, sniveling people that just don't get it, bloodthirsty people, I could work on Carl. Carl seems to have something. He has a leadership spark. He has courage. He has bravery. Yeah. All the people that are working under him, you got Regina, you got Gavin, you got Simon. There's something wrong with each of them. Even Dwight, you know, I mean, he had to break him down, you know, whereas with Carl, he felt like he might not have had to do it if he just coaxed him the right way. And that's why I think Carl is so important. That's why I think Carl's death really shows the fact that he's like thinking to himself, there is no hope for the future if I don't. In this apocalypse where where we're running out of resources, quote unquote, in this slim world where there's just so little humanity, to find somebody like Carl that has the strength of Rick, you know, that has found the courage to find a line where, you know, I could talk to him and I don't have to coax him. I don't have to even nudge him in many different directions. He gets the way I work because I showed him around and all this stuff.
Yeah, no.
And even though he has to be against me, I can respect him for that kind of thing, you know? Whereas everybody else just kind of either falls in line because, hey, I get perks, or hey, I get to kill people, or hey, you know, I don't get to die, you know? This guy actually has conviction. So it does kind of come back around, and I think it's going to affect him in ways that we just maybe won't see until the next episode. This would be like Father Gabriel version 2.0, where we get that little bit more insight, a little bit more depth. And this is something that, by the way, you had mentioned in the beginning of the season. You were really upset with how two-dimensional Negan was. And now you're seeing a lot of promise in this character, and it's kind of fleshing out. And I think now you're really, really psyched, Carol. I can see it in your virtual eyes.
I am psyched because I was very concerned because I felt that he was being treated as a very one-dimensional character. And now not so much. I think that they're going to give him some depth. I think they're going to make him interesting. I think that it's going to... I mean, I don't think that you're ever going to be like, oh, well, who's truly the evil one, Rick or Negan? It's like, okay, let's not go there, because it's like, you know, Negan, you know, did kill Abraham and Glenn, and he does have, like, you know, a harem of concubines, so like that's not cool.
Yeah, I think we forget
don't forget about the harem with the concubines. Like, no. So it's like, he's not like I said, he's not a good guy, but I don't think he's a bad guy either, because I think the intention's there. Even with that episode when he was stuck with Father Gabriel and they managed to make their way back into the sanctuary, first of all, he could have thrown Father Gabriel to the wolves and basically said, hey guys, here's Gabriel, feast on him so I can escape. Yeah. I mean, didn't Shane do that back when they were at the farm? He killed Otis so that he could get away. I mean, savage Shane. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Totally.
Like Shane did that back in the day. Negan didn't do that. Negan could have easily done that to like Gabriel and left them there, you know, for dead. No, he actually like made sure that they both got to safety, you know, two of them. And when he got back in, you know, and, you know, first of all, like the masses were about to like fall apart because he wasn't there. He shows up, everybody falls in line. And, you know, you even heard some people like, oh, thank God, you know, you're back or whatever. It's like,
thank God for you, Negan.
It's like, because I think that he feels, and to some extent, you know, depending on the group, it is true, that left to their own devices, they will just eat each other alive. And that's what started to happen, you know? And so he has to be there to make sure that order remains, at least in his circumstances.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, so it's like, I feel like he's just he operates in a very totalitarian manner. So I think it's fascinating. I think it's very interesting. I'm glad that they didn't just keep making him a caricature. I'm glad that they are exploring that. And I think that they'll continue to do that. What I am trying to figure out is the very last scene of this episode, obviously, because I know a lot of people are trying to figure out what in the world was going on there.
because you're not entirely 100% certain that we're caught up.
Yeah, they play with time hard this season.
Yeah, because one could assume that they were done burying Carl and that's where they were. But my mind is like, okay, they buried Carl in Alexandria.
Right.
You notice the walls as they're putting him to the ground.
I think Rick also has a different shirt.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah, there's that, and that he's in a completely different setting, and there's blood all over his hands in that scene. And I'm like thinking to myself, I don't think that's from Carl. It looks too fresh. Maybe something happened. Maybe he let somebody go. Maybe he had Negan in the palm of his hands.
Yeah, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would guess that is an outcome of a confrontation with Negan, but I don't know what the outcome of that confrontation is.
Yeah, it could have gone bad.
It could have gone bad.
Actually.
It could have not. It could, it could have, I don't know. That I think it's the outcome of that, whatever that final confrontation is, but I don't know what the outcome is. Because the other thing too is that it's such a bizarre, almost serene scene. There's like nothing else around.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody else around. Right. And you know what? As you're talking, it makes me even start to think that maybe that confrontation ended with somebody close to him dying. That's what I'm thinking.
That too.
And he's like just telling himself, may my mercy prevail over my wrath. That's sort of like, he's just like a mantra, because it's like, how am I supposed to not kill him? I gotta kill him. But I have to keep saying this so I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It
sucks.
It sucks. Yeah, I don't know. You never know. It's like they always said, nobody's safe. And I feel like certain characters are more on the chopping block now than others, just because of real life circumstances that might entice them to go elsewhere. So maybe, maybe their time on the show isn't all that long. I mean, a lot of people say, I haven't seen Black Panther yet, but a lot of people say that Denai Guerrera basically stole that show, and her stock has gone up.
Her acting stock has gone. Yeah, I feel that.
So,
I feel that.
Is she gonna continue on? I don't know. Then there's all this stuff that I've heard about Lauren Cohan and her contract and all of that. Yeah,
oh God.
But the thing is that Maggie's, I don't know. I mean, it's left to be seen what they do with Maggie. I feel like Maggie's another character that they really haven't focused enough on. Maggie should be leading this damn charge. Her husband, she's the widow, which is so cool if you think about it. It's like the widow. They call her the widow. I'm like, you being the widow, you should be like freaking ninja style here. You should be like just leading the charge with a lot of this stuff. And I feel like she's like a secondary sort of storyline. Like she's.
Well, I think we're getting there.
So.
I really do think we're getting there, because I mean, like, there have been scenes with Enid in the next episode. There've been because they have to get back to this at some point, and I know they are going to focus on the hilltop at some point.
Well, they're all going there.
And she's already coming into her own. She's already starting to make decisions, and obviously we see the coffin in the next episode at Sanctuary. Yes. There's no telling where they'll actually take this to. But actually, so that's the funny thing, because what I wanted to talk about this episode, because we brought all the stuff with Negan and how he's getting depth, but I think the cool thing about this episode, though, is that we really rake over this idea of redemption. And the reason why that's so important in relation to Negan is that I feel like with all the scenes, and we're going to talk about those scenes between Gavin and Ezekiel, where he's trying to basically give Gavin a way out, even though Zeke's the dead man.
Right.
It's kind of telling us that it's just never too late to walk back, to walk it back. Even after everything has been said and done, even though you have the means to walk it back, you have all the power in the world to kind of walk everything back. And I feel like you can easily say that to Negan as well.
No, it's true.
You can easily say that, and it's just never too late. And then maybe there's a way for you to kind of make it right, and that's all Carl has really been saying is like, it just takes one person to be willing to put things down. You have that theme, and then you have also the theme of innocence lost, and the idea that killing is easy, but making peace is much harder. And I think from here on in, you're going to see instances where, I don't know, maybe in these following episodes, you're going to see instances where it doesn't work, and you're going to see instances where it does work. And I feel like we're going to have this just 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of situation, or maybe 1 step forward, 2 steps back, depending on how the show, how sadistic the writers are going to be in the following, 7 episodes, 8 episodes, 7
left.
I don't know. let's move on to like Zeke and Gavin, because I think this, to me, these scenes, and you have to realize something. Once this scene started, you were constantly moving back and forth between Kingdom and Alexandria. You were like literally, you'd have a line or two, and then they would have a line or two in Alexandria. You know, between Rick and Carl and Judith and all that stuff, and then they whip back to either Zeke and Gavin or Morgan and Gavin, that sort of thing. And it literally, like, if you notice, like, okay, the first half of the episode is pretty slow going, and they would slowly go back and forth, but near the second half or the last third of the episode, you were just constantly moving back and forth, and these scenes kind of play with each other. You can always go back. It's not too late. That sort of thing. It's all about that. And literally, Carl is basically telling his dad, "Thank you for getting me here, because I could have been a completely different person, but you worked on me. The reason why I'm here now is because you saw that I could have gone down a dark path, and you walked me back. You did it for me. You changed the way you were to kind of make me a better person."
Exactly.
And then you whip back to Morgan and Gavin, and I love the little Mike Myers reference.
Greg Nicotero.
Yeah, it was Greg Nicotero. He was like referring to Mike Myers more than Mike Myers, like just unstoppable killing machine. That exactly
was when he was basically hunting his prey with his stick, like dragging the stick on the ground. I'm like, oh god, it's like the killer jangling his keys, whatever.
They were scraping his knife against the fence or something like that. But you whip back there, and then like Zeke's basically going to Morgan like, "Play your hand" or something like that. Like, you don't have to go this far.
What was it that he said? He said, "You are the author of how this chapter closes, or how this story something like that."
Oh, I wrote it down.
You got it. I was like, something along those lines.
Zeke says this to Gavin, and he says, Zeke says, "You are the author of this night, Gavin. Its close shall be fashioned by your start."
Yes.
And it's so prescient. Yeah, it's just like this dead man is basically telling his not his executioner, but the guy who's walking him to the gallows. It's never too late, man. I made my peace. I did what I had to do.
I like that, especially when Gavin talks into the walkie-talkie and nobody responds, and Ezekiel tells him again, it's like, it's not too late. It's not too late.
Yeah, and then he says right back, he says, "Quit picking dingles."
Oh my god, yes.
Gomez.
Oh god.
We stop picking dingles, grab your walkie and respond. It's just so good. It's not too late to walk back from something decided.
Yes.
That's what he says.
Because he knows that Morgan and Carol are there.
Yeah, does he though?
I think he knows that something's up, like the fact that they don't answer, like he knows that obviously these guys have been taken out. So he's kind of like, "Hey man, it's not too late."
And the very last thing he says to him too, it's like, and this is what was so powerful. So Gavin says this, he says, "I've got to settle this under the penalty of that goddamn bat." And then Zeke says, "You don't." And then Gavin just right away slaps Zeke, just slaps him down to the ground. And he basically says he can't walk it back. He survived all this is my commentary. He's like, he survived all this wrath because he was on the right side. I think from Gavin's perspective, like, he must feel like this is his curse. Like, he's cursed to be on the right side, to watch these people that he thinks he's been trying to save. Like, look, I don't want any trouble, that sort of thing. Like, if you follow these rules, I think you're good people. I think you just want to get by. You just want to, you want to live in peace. This is the way this is going to go. You have to follow these rules and you'll be fine, or else it'll get messy. And I think in his head, he thinks he's like this peacemaker. He's like, look, I don't know about Negan or nothing, it's like, it's not my call, but I'm just following this guy. And like, I really sincerely think, he's kind of like this buffer between Zeke and Negan from his perspective. He can't simply walk it back though, too. Like, you think he would. He's like this privileged person that he just doesn't know he has this privilege until like it's too late. And it's like, but this is the way it's supposed to work. Like, so when he slaps him down, he's like, "No, you're wrong. This is just the way it's gotta be. Like, it's the same shit every day. This is the curse I have, and as long as I keep doing my job, I mean, that's just the way it's gonna be. I see people die all the time and I try to stop it. Like, I try to stop it, but it just keeps turning out the same. It's like, this is like the curse he has to live with.
Exactly. It's the curse that he ends up having to deal with, basically.
And of course we know better.
Right.
Like, of course we know better. Like, we know that, at some point you have to walk it back. Like, okay, look at Tara's situation. Like she couldn't even walk it back until it was too late. And even then she probably could have run away, and she probably could have not gone with Glenn, not joined forces. But in the end, it took Glenn putting down his anger, that she had been with him to kind of make peace at the prison.
Exactly.
And, go to Terminus, I think it was. Yeah.
Oh.
So, you have these themes. You have these themes that kind of repeat too. And then you have this Henry situation.
Well, I think that's the point where, Morgan kind of like basically wakes up. I think somebody I heard akined it to, or basically compared it to like when you have like Mario and he gets the star and he's like invincible and then the star wears off. So that's basically what happened to Morgan when like Henry shows up and goes Gavin. The reality starts to set in like, I trained this kid to do this.
Right, it wasn't supposed to be like that. Like, it was really supposed to be for defense or to disable.
Right.
Yeah.
Not like, hey guys, look what I did,
Yeah, and that's the thing. See, I don't think we've even begun to see how this has affected Morgan yet. We've just seen him stop because Gavin's dead. So we really don't. I didn't even see as much of a reaction.
No, I think
as I thought.
I think that the reaction was more so of the shock of seeing Henry do that. But yeah, I think that's the extent of it. We didn't see much else beyond that. I think we will. And I think that this could be maybe part of what propels him to go to Fear. Yeah, to leave and join Fear the Walking Dead, which, by the way, I've heard that the premiere of Fear the Walking Dead will follow immediately after the season finale of The Walking Dead. So potentially we might see Morgan walk from one set to the other.
Yeah, I think that's basically been his shooting schedule.
So I basically need to catch up in the next couple of months with Fear the Walking Dead so I can understand how this whole thing is coming together.
Do you think that this will happen right after this episode?
No, because I think that Morgan needs to impart some wisdom on Rick. I think they need to have more heart-to-heart. If Morgan really is leaving, I think we see more of Morgan and Rick specifically.
You're thinking because of how he was in the beginning of the show, basically first season. You think there'll be like a moment? I think
they'll have a moment because these guys were together in episode 1, season 1, So I think that they're going to give him some moment before he departs and potentially like leaves in the night or something. But I think that they'll have like at least one moment before he decides, screw this, I'm out of here.
I just honestly, you know what? I don't even know. Like anything right now will work.
Yeah,
at
it's
this
true.
rate. I can't even tell where we go because I think Rick's got his hands full.
He does. He's got quite a bit going on,
Yeah, his plate's kind of heavy right now.
He's got a lot on his plate. He's not he's not short of things to do. So yeah, not a dull moment for Rick Grimes right now. But no, I thought it was very, I thought the Ezekiel and Morgan storyline was, very interesting. Pretty much, I would say probably the grossest kill possibly that I have seen on this show.
Oh, you're saying Morgan's kill?
I think that was probably the worst that I've seen on this show, possibly, potentially. In terms of human to human, I should say. I'm not going to say like Walker kills.
Yeah, that is pretty gnarly. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Oh, and what's this whole reveal about like this naked Walker thing that's going on? Yeah,
and say something about that.
Okay, I like records.
So I think it's I'm going to go on my soapbox for a moment, and I'm basically just going to say that I think this country is so ridiculous that it is scandalous that to have a naked Walker coming up. And meanwhile, I can put on regular old AMC at 9 o'clock and watch some guy's intestines get ripped out of his body. Like, I think that's insane. But a naked Walker is scandalous and needs to be prefaced ahead of time. But, organs getting ripped out, like, no, we're not going to give you any warning about that. Like, just enjoy the show,
Yeah, enjoy the blood and gore. The guy's head coming off while Rick was hanging on his body. Like, take your pick.
I just find it so insane. I'm like, we are so uptight as a country. Like, how is a naked Walker scandalous? Meanwhile, like all this other stuff that anybody can put on the channel and watch, pretty much anybody, like all you get is like a little blurb of a warning a few seconds before the show comes on. And that's it. Other than that, like, there you go. Enjoy. I think that's insane. And there's no reason for a naked Walker. Yeah. I'm sorry.
like
to begin with. Like that makes no sense to me.
So like on the one hand, that's what you're gonna get upset about, but on the other hand, like you don't really need it. Like Naked Walker.
Like my thing, I'm just like, if you're trying to be like salacious to kind of be like ooh scandalous or whatever, you can get to that by just wait it out until after this war is over. Give Daryl his storyline with a whatever, and these chicks are going to be throwing their like panties at the screen because now all of a sudden Daryl's got a love interest, and it's going to be like, ooh, Daryl. Like I am not a Daryl enthusiast like that, but I know that there are plenty of women out there that are, and I'm sure that they would like be in a frenzy over something like that. Naked Walker,
right?
I just don't see. I don't understand. I don't understand where that even comes into play. Like, why would you have a Naked Walker? I'm like I thought about it. I'm like, where would that fit? Like, why? What purpose?
Oh, I can tell you easily if you're interested.
Your theory.
But I mean, like, so on the one hand, you have the idea of like the George Romero thing, where like, okay, so first of all, like the celebrities that get shot on the rooftop, that kind of trope, where like the walkers that look like celebrities, okay, like, but then you have also like if you look at some walkers, you think in some scenes you think, oh, what's their story? You know, like where were they when that happened, or why are they dressed like that, or something like that. So I think Greg Nicotero likes the idea of playing with like, okay, the radioactive walkers, like why are they like this? Why do they look like this? Well, as a matter of fact, it's because of the chemicals in the ground and the radioactivity, and then you have like the sand walkers, you know, from that one bridge scene, PP, and then you have but then you have like these one-offs, like, you know, what happened to this guy, you know, why is he like this? I think that it didn't have to be announced. Like, why couldn't you just keep it in your pants, you know, because I mean, just let it happen. People might not even notice it too. But then the fact that you kind of have to bring it out, it's just kind of like, well, now you're kind of just aggrandizing it. We're not really going to give a damn about it. Maybe. I don't know. But maybe we will. I don't care.
They're just way too excited about it. They couldn't like help themselves.
Yeah, just let it happen. Let the controversy just come out of it. Like I think that's like a big flaw with like American TV, is that sometimes we
can't help themselves.
We overly announce that. Yeah, we overly announce things. Like I remember I was sitting down with somebody and talking about how they're really frustrated with American television. It's like, so look, when we're talking to each other, do I say, hey, Carol, but Carol, listen to this, but Carol, like you say the other person's name in conversation. It's like, you don't really do that. Like, you know I'm there. I know who you are. I don't have to keep saying your name. So they get really frustrated by that. I'm like, oh, I get that. That actually makes a lot of sense. Like at first I was kind of like, okay, what are you complaining about? But, you know, when you're talking to your friends, you don't keep telling them their own name, right? Yeah. So this is the kind of the same way, though. It's kind of like, well, you know, why overstate it? Like, if you're doing a good job, or even if you're not, like, people will notice the work that you're doing. You know, people notice the things. Like some people won't. Like I saw like a little blurb about the 10 best zombies from The Walking Dead, 10 best walkers or something, and like they really zoomed in on some of the walkers that like I hadn't noticed. Like, okay, this walker had still had reading glasses on and a pearl necklace, and I was like, oh, it looks like a librarian, like things like that. Like, oh, I didn't notice it unless you pointed it out. But on the other hand, it's kind of like you're not really supposed to notice them as much as really the story development and the character development in drawing out these people and their, because the people are the Walking Dead. To do that, to kind of bring out the walkers and how impressive they are, kind of takes away from the show. The whole reason why a lot of people don't even watch The Walking Dead, just to begin with, is because nobody wants to watch another zombie television show. Like, the whole reason why I still talk to people, they're like, oh, you don't watch The Walking Dead? Yes, I didn't want to see zombies. And I'm like,
it's way beyond
dude, it's not about the zombies. Yeah. So to accentuate the whole zombie thing, like to make it a thing, it's kind of like, well, don't do that, because you've already turned off people from this idea because of that. And the reason why people still watch is because of the people. Like, the people are the Walking Dead. So why
in the story, not just like, oh, look at these zombies. It's like, nah, we're past that point.
Yeah. So just chill out, buddy.
I agree 100%.
As much as I like the behind the scenes, though, I do like the behind the scenes, what goes into them and all that stuff. But like to just make, but to make it a thing, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's kind of like, It's not necessary.
Like, coming up, here's a zombie. No, like, tell me afterwards.
Yeah, it's like, I don't need to. That's okay. It's all right. I don't necessarily need a naked zombie.
Right. Before the fact. Like, after the fact, okay, tell me how you made it, blah, blah, blah. I'm really proud of it. Okay, I get it. You're proud of it. That's cool.
Right,
I like that. You know, and then I like to know how you did that.
Cool.
But, like, after the fact. Tell me after the show. Like, oh, ancillarily, this setting was in... We flew everybody out to Alaska. We filmed here. Oh, that's cool.
Right.
You don't, like, announce that they're going to Alaska for this one scene, you know, like beforehand. It's like, okay, tell me afterwards. That's kind of impressive.
Right.
It takes away from the story.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I agree. Naked Walker. I'm going to be giving that Naked Walker the side eye when it shows up.
Now, right? Because before you wouldn't care. It's like,
now I'm going to be like, oh, well, here's the Naked Walker they were talking about.
Well, you know, it wouldn't have been a thing if Chris Hardwick didn't ask the question too. I don't think so. I think he's culpable in that. It's like, why? I
gotta ask you, speaking of Chris Hardwick, do you feel that Carl got as large of a send-off on Talking Dead as other characters have? I think Glenn got it way better. Glenn, they had this big thing in the cemetery, and it was raining, and they had all the cast members on, and it was like,
oh, you're talking about the 100th episode send-off.
Well, Glenn's death wasn't the 100th episode. The 100th episode was the season premiere of this season, right?
Yeah, that was actually. The first episode.
I'm just thinking
season,
that when Glenn was murdered and they had Talking Dead, I feel like they gave him a big send off. Like that Talking Dead was like super size, you know? And I feel like for Carl, like, I mean, you know, they obviously gave him his props, but I don't necessarily think it was as big.
I'll be honest though. So I hear what you're saying. I think a lot of me was kind of like, I liked it to the point where even the music that they were playing, and I may still do this, I wanted to actually play in the background of the show, our show. So that's how much I actually enjoyed the music they decided to compose for that in memoriam. You have to accept one thing, and that's the send off is never going to be big enough for a character like Carl. Like we're playing with something that we never thought we would have to. Well, you might have thought we had to play with, but like eventually. But you know, for people who didn't see it didn't see it coming, but like who a character that's been on this long, there's no send off that's big enough. I was kind of heartbroken when Dale left the show. But like, you know, and like I still think about him in a way, like, oh, what would Dale do?
Well, and he still came up, like he would still come on.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, and I'm not saying that, oh, Dale should have gotten a big send off. I'm like, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that like every character should have like a proper send off, but like at the same time, it's kind of like this is a big one. This is a kid that's grown up on the show. There's no send off that's going to be big enough. I think they did a really good job, kind of accentuating the fact that, you know, showing the scenes that, you know, interweave between when he was a kid and as he was growing up.
They did a good job with that for sure.
You only have so much time too, and it is Talking Dead, to be honest. You know, like if they had like a little featurette on their own, let's say on the website, that would be kind of cool too. But at the same time, if you do that, then you're really going to have to start doing that for either you're going to have to start doing that with other characters, or I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to gauge. So I think they did what they thought was fair. I think
true.
But you know, it's never going to be enough for that kind of kid. You know, for that kind of character.
No,
it's pretty big.
It's pretty big. I just kind of always think back to Glenn. It always compares to Glenn. And it was funny because I was talking to somebody who I guess was watching, you know, because I always show marathons, obviously, whenever it's leading up to like a mid-season premiere and all of that. They were watching old episodes, and these old episodes had Glenn, and they were like, man, you know, watching these old episodes, Glenn really made me miss Glenn. And I was like, God, you know, I haven't gone back to see any of the older episodes. I wonder if I would feel the same way.
Oh, with Carl, you're saying?
With Carl or with Glenn, or Glenn versus Carl, like, you know, and I think they had polls too, like, you know, which death hit you harder, Glenn or Carl?
Oh, you know what? If I had to take that poll, I'd still say Glenn.
I think that's
honestly, to be really honest.
The result, it was Glenn.
Yeah, isn't that an odd thing though too? You know, like you think you would vote Carl.
I just feel like Glenn had I don't know, I was more emotionally invested in Glenn, and he very much was a moral compass, like he very much was. And as much as he was not like Abraham, like he wasn't like this loud presence, although Abraham would crack me up with his liners, and I do miss that. but his presence was felt and his absence were felt. I mean, I know people who stopped watching after they killed Glenn. They were like, I'm over it. I'm done.
Well, I think it's time to talk about what we can expect. I mean, we have a little bit here and there, but I think that we really do need to talk about Enid and Aaron.
And Oceanside.
I know there was some some little glimpses within some of the sneak peeks about what could happen, but I really couldn't tell.
All they really showed was them basically Enid trying to appeal to them and basically say, like, look, you should join us because they're going to inevitably find you and they will kill you. That's all I really saw, which is a hard sell, I'm like, you guys came in and took all of their weapons and then you're like, hey, join us. So... And then you kill grandma. So it's like, that's a hard sell, but that's the impression I get. So we'll see what comes from that.
I was even going to say at the beginning of the show that, I'd be fine with not seeing the Junkyard Gang again, but then it's apparent that we are going to see them again, and there's going to be some pretty big stuff happening with them too.
I think that the Junkyard people purely exist to basically prove that Simon is evil and Negan is not necessarily so. I feel like that's purely their existence. Their existence purely is just so that they can be killed by Simon.
Oh my God.
I do. I really do. Because I'm speculating because they do not exist in the comics. So this is not based off of anything. But my personal feeling is that I think that they solely exist to basically illustrate what an evil, sadistic sociopath Simon is and how Negan is not that.
That's going to be like Negan's turning point.
I think
his idea between Carl's death and
seeing that his own people are perpetrating some of the crimes that he preaches against.
Right. In his name.
In his name. Exactly.
So that's interesting. So yeah, I guess we're setting the stage for his change in philosophy, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's. I think it's all about redemption. I think it's a lot about redemption. Can Negan be fully redeemed? Maybe not fully redeemed, but at the same time, I think that he is also of sound mind enough to understand, like, this was not my intention when this whole thing, even like how he told Sasha, it's like everybody following the rules. That's what this whole thing was supposed to be about. That's what he told Sasha when Carl and him had their little confrontation on the wall, and Carl tells him, like, is this what you wanted? Is this what you envisioned? And he really does think about it. I don't think, no, it's not what he envisioned.
Yeah.
It's not.
We know that Alexandria had vision. Right from the beginning, you had people thinking about, okay, what can we do to improve the future? And how can we do this better? Mm-hmm. And then, obviously things kind of got in the way between the wolves and the saviors and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of bears in mind that, like, okay, maybe Negan had a far different view, or maybe whoever was in charge beforehand, which could have been Simon.
Could have been.
Maybe Negan had just a completely different view of how this would go under his reign. Maybe he had similar visions, and then it just somewhere along the way, with opposition and the way things ended up and the way the small little compromises that he had to make to keep order, to keep people falling in line. Maybe this completely turned out not the way that he initially envisioned. Maybe he thought people would cop on, So that's what makes that, you're right. That's what makes that moment so powerful between him and Carl, that last moment. And think about it, that's the last thing technically that he hears from Carl ever.
Yep.
He'll find out eventually that Carl is dead.
Yes.
And that those words are just going to ring out in his brain. And as people start disappointing him, like finding out Gavin's dead, Simon probably genociding a whole community with Regina, let's say. Who else? I mean, Dwight abandoning him. That's another thing too.
Right.
He'll find out that Dwight it just turned coat.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's left to be seen what's going to end up happening with Eugene, Dr. Carson, and Father Gabriel. When last we saw Eugene, it looked like he was kind of turning to kind of help Father Gabriel and Dr. Carson potentially escape. I think in the trailer for the second half of the season, we see Eugene looking at a bullet. So I am going to take it to think that he is going to do either one of two things. He's either going to help Negan with the armory and making bullets, but secretly supply the rebellion or resistance with ammo as well. Or he might make blanks.
Or even, either blanks or maybe even bullets that just disable their guns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's say they explode in the chamber, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think he will subtly be helping Rick and crew. Like, he's not brave enough, obviously, to be like, oh, I'm going to make my way out of here and I'm going to save. That's not
It's not Eugene.
It is not Eugene. But I think he will subtly do his part, I think.
Right.
I think we're ready for next week. I think we have our opinion on what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, and a whole host of things that we cannot expect.
No, and a whole lot.
Because we got 7 episodes left. So
we have 7 episodes left. And I think that the big outstanding question is going to be what in the world is going on with Rick in that end scene. That is, I think that we have clear answers now on the, quote unquote flash forwards, but now
we still have more questions though.
We still have more questions though. The bleary-eyed Rick saying my mercy prevailed over my wrath. I think we're still not clear on what exactly transpired there.
Yeah.
I heard somebody mention on another podcast, because, some people are super, I guess, eagle-eyed. Okay. Somebody said that if you zoom in on that last scene, there is a butcher knife in Rick's hand or side or something like that. If you zoom in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now,
In his side?
In his side.
Ew.
I need to rewatch and really zoom in to understand, because I did not catch that. Maybe that is the case. I don't know. I will say that if there's a knife involved, that does relate to something that happened in the comic, but it still doesn't necessarily clarify what happened there, what transpired there. I do think that he's involved, obviously, in some sort of confrontation, but the outcome of that is what I don't know. Who won that outcome?
Interesting. You know what? This is a good opportunity for you to expound on that in the comic spoilers.
Yes, I will.
Blog.
Yes.
If you guys haven't read it, we kind of go in. I don't, but Carol does. And if you are a fan of the comics, she will do scene comparisons and ideas and theories. And I think she's been blowing it out a lot lately. And I think there's some really good, interesting reads, some of which I don't, because I need to be that guy.
I know, you need to be that person. You can't, just close your eyes, Dave. Don't read it.
Just skip over those parts.
Skip over those parts, exactly. For sure.
Yeah. And with that, everybody, I think we will catch you next week. I cannot wait for this Sunday's episode, and yes. I think I'm thinking and hoping that we're going to get some Father Gabriel Negan 2.0 kind of depth with Negan, and hopefully we'll catch up with the rest of the gang that we haven't seen since 2 episodes ago. So with that, we'll see you next week. Take care, y'all.
See you next week.